Have you ever thought aviation was too expensive? Me too. Let's do something about that. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Ian's Life. So if you're anything like me, at some point you watched a YouTube video that started something like this.
I'm Trent Palmer. I fly drones for a living and bushplanes for fun. Follow along as I journey off the beaten path of aviation.
Now, whether it was Trent, Corey, or somebody else, you saw that backcountry aviation, camping, having fun, and you went, that looks like the time of my life. I want to do that. But then you got on Barnstormers and started looking at airplanes to do that sort of flying and realized something. Trent's airplane? Somewhere's north of $100,000. Corey or one of the other guys flying a Carbon Cub? Hundreds of thousands of dollars. Unfortunately, not all of us have that kind of money, and even an inexpensive version of an airplane like that is somewhere's north of $50,000. I don't know about you, but I don't have that kind of money. My Rands is in a three-way partnership, and I have a little piece of it, and even then I have too much money in it for me or any of the other guys to feel comfortable about dinging that thing up in the backcountry. So what to do? Well, what if I told you that there was an airplane that you can buy for less than $20,000 with world record-setting STOL performance? It would be too good to be true, right? Let's see about that. And this is it. This is a Chinook Plus 2. Moreover, I've put my money where my mouth is. This is my Chinook Plus 2 that I bought for $12,000. Now, I know I told you less than $20,000, and I did that for a reason. I think 20 is a real reasonable number, and this leaves us some room for some upgrades and some changes. I think with work that almost anybody can do and a little bit of time and effort, this can be a super low buck, very usable backcountry aircraft. Let's go take a look at it. So if you've ever seen this video clip, you know what a Chinook can do. That's Dan Reynolds setting a world record for short landing in his Chinook. He's done a lot with these little things and proven what they can do. That's still two-stroke powered. That has a few modifications that you may be able to pick out from the video clip, but still the same basic airframe. These things are incredibly capable right out of the box. This one already is a very capable airplane, and we're just going to improve it. So what have we purchased? Well, it's a Chinook Plus 2 from 1997, kit built. This particular one has a Rotax 582 on it currently. More on what we're going to do with that later. It's otherwise a factory build, not a lot to talk about there. It has had a few of the little upgrades over time, an upgraded tail wheel. The avionics have been changed at some point in the recent past. Interior is still largely as it was from the factory, but some of the stuff like the radio and the avionics are still a little newer than the airframe. Now we're going to change a lot with this, but I think this is going to be an excellent platform. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about what we're going to do with it. So now that you've been introduced to the Chinook, let's talk about what we're going to do with it. I'm going to kind of break this down into 3 categories. Stuff we're going to do initially, some mid-range goals, long-term. This is all in service of my goal of making it into a usable backcountry airplane. By usable, I mean something that I can take out into the backcountry on relatively extended flights, do some travel in, and really get to use. So, I've got a little list. I've got a nice, well, horrible drawing of a Chinook that we can kind of sketch on. Let's get talking about it. So, the first thing that we're going to be looking at is some of the housekeeping. And the first item is an elevator cable adjustment. I won't get into this in tremendous detail. Suffice to say, there is a rigging issue with the elevator that means I'm getting way more up than down, and it's also affecting the neutral. It's just going to help the airplane settle down and cruise. A related item to this is trim, elevator trim specifically. Airplane does not have it right now, so we're going to be changing the rigging of the elevator, and then we're going to be adding, I think, an adjustable trim tab back here. This is a factory option that somebody can do, and having flown mine without trim, and I'll report on what the trim does for it, but I think that that's going to do a lot for the airplane. Then we've got just a little bit of housekeeping. This is little things like hardware that I don't particularly like, odd things just chafing a little bit, general cleanup. This is stuff that most anybody's going to do if you buy a new airplane just to make it your own and get it the way you want it. That takes care of our general items. Now let's get into the things we're actually going to do that are going to change and improve the airplane substantially. One of the big ones is fuel tanks. Now, I haven't exactly drawn them here, but the stock football tanks, drop tanks, whatever you want to call them, live out here on the wings or under the wings, as the case may be, and on the struts, and they're 2 5-gallon tanks feeding the engine. This gives you a range realistically with a reserve at or under 2 hours. You might be able to get more hours, but at the cost of a substantial amount of your speed. I would like more, so we are going to be using a factory option and putting in wing tanks. Hopefully those are large enough to give me a little boost in range just right off the bat. I will probably also make some provisions so that we can keep the stock tanks in place and use both of them together. I'll probably make it to where I can remove those so I don't have to use them when I don't want to, but that'll give me a huge range boost. So, 4 tanks. Once we have the fuel situation under control, we need to take a look at the landing gear situation. Now, honesty compels me to admit that the tires that are on it, the brakes that are on it, the landing gear that's on it could probably be used for some lightweight off-airport stuff. And certainly any kind of backcountry on grass airport stuff, more than adequate. That said, I want this airplane to not just be okay in the backcountry, I want it to be really good in the backcountry. Current gear has about 2 inches of travel in it. That's not a whole lot, and the brakes are not very strong. Plane lands slow enough, doesn't need particularly strong brakes to be safe, but I want more. So there is a factory gear for this. We may use that. It's kind of a Cub style gear. It's called the DR gear. We may be using the DR gear. I actually have an idea for doing kind of a Super Stol style gear, mounted somewheres in here up to this point. Carrying this original rod forward right there and another one up to the center and some big old tires on there. So we'll definitely be doing some suspension and landing gear work, and we're definitely going to be adding, rather than the single squeeze handbrake that was in there on the stick, we're going to be putting actual Foot brakes in. So differential braking, bigger, better brakes, bigger axles, bigger landing gear, shock absorbers, all that is coming. So let's just put that here as gear, brakes. And then, let's see, item 6, vortex generators. We are definitely going to put some VGs on the wings, possibly also on the bottom side of the stab ahead of the elevator to get a little more low-speed elevator. They're cheap, they're easy, there's no reason not to do them. They absolutely will improve the plane. Enough said about that. And here's the biggie, Yamaha power. Now, right now, the Chinook has a Rotax 582 on it. And I just want to be clear about something real quick. There's nothing wrong with it. It runs fine, and it is not underpowered. I'm not doing this for horsepower. The plane performs well. However, two-strokes are finicky. They require very special care and feeding. They're thirsty, they're noisy. Overall times are low. For me, I'm a four-stroke guy. I'm also a Yamaha guy, and this is going to be a demo plane for me, so there's no reason not to switch that guy out for a little two-cylinder Yamaha Phaser. I think we'll end up with a support brace here. So this is going to give us about another between 10 and 20 horsepower at an estimate. Yamaha rates them at 85. If that's the case, it's a full 20 horsepower over original. I'm not going to sneeze at the power. That'll be nice, but mostly I'm doing this for flight experience. So Yamaha, which rounds out the stuff that's going to be done in the short term to medium term. After that, however, there are some other items that I want to take care of. The big one being the flaperons. Airplane currently has full span, semi-full span flaperons. Problem with them, as you deploy flaperons, and these are the attached style of flaperon, they're not detached like a Kit Fox or something similar. They're attached conventionally at the back of the wing. As you lower those, you lose aileron authority, and it can actually be very verging on dangerous in a crosswind situation. I actually, in the video earlier when it was flying the airplane in crosswind, I did one landing with the flaperons in, decided I wasn't going to do any more of that. So what are we going to do about it? I am going to split them to where we have dedicated ailerons and flaps. This is going to help with lightening up the stick feel, which is another big thing that's very heavy on the roll axis currently. This is going to lighten up the roll. It's also going to give me more crosswind control with the flaps deployed, allowing me to use the flaps in more situations. So, item 8, flaps. Item 9 is the tail wheel. The tail wheel actually isn't too small in diameter, but it's quite narrow. It's only about that wide, inch and a half, something like that. And this is a fairly heavy tail. You have a lot of weight back there, and it's going to dig in. So I think we're going to eventually put a larger tail wheel. That may actually happen relatively earlier if I can scare one up quickly. So tail wheel will be going on. And finally, cargo. I would like to put some form of underwing cargo. The airplane is usable as it is. You can take the rear seat out, put a nice big plastic container back there, and carry 200 odd pounds of your stuff with you. It's very usable, but I'd like to be able to take a person and still have the option of cargo. So we may do cargo pods where these stock tanks were, even potentially next to the stock tanks, so that you can still use them along with the wing tanks, so you get range, cargo, and passenger carrying capacity. And that's all of our items that we're looking at right now. Cargo. So 10 things that are going to get attention in the short, medium, and long term on the airplane, and I think it's going to be absolutely transformative on this plane. We're going to go from something that is a local fun flyer to a very capable, competitive backcountry airplane. So that's all I've got for this video. There's obviously a lot more coming in the upcoming days, literally days. Right after I shoot this, we're going to be dragging the airplane home and starting into this list right here. So if you want to see more of that, subscribe if you haven't. Like this video, it really helps me out. Come check out what we're going to be doing, because there's lots more where this came from. We'll see you guys next time. Stay tuned.